Welcome to the age of environmental crises. You're familiar with the Save the Earth campaign. However, I would like to challenge you to think about the content of the campaign. Are the issues and the questions being asked in that campaign truly where we need to be at in our environmental preservation journey? In light of what scientists and economists are finding in recent years, I believe we are in desperate need of a change in conversation topic. Our conversations relating to the environment need to shift from how do we stop the change to how should we adapt in order to maintain a sustainable existence in the midst of environmental change. As your local nature documentary addict, I'd like to further explore this subject. I'm going to do it in 3 ways. The first being I want to explore why our current conversations are no longer applicable. Secondly, I would like to take a look at the questions that we should be asking. And finally, how is changing the topic of conversation going to benefit us in the long run? Our conversations are currently irrelevant. Change in our standard of living is inevitable. Everyone agrees that we need change. If you don't believe in climate change, you still believe that we need change. If you believe that we're destroying the earth, you believe that we need to change in a way that's going to save the earth. And if you're stuck on the middle ground, you're caught between an awful crossfire praying to your respective gods, that anything and everything changes so that the two extremes stop going at each other's throats without considering the cost of their ideals. Everyone agrees that we need to change. However, not everyone agrees how we need to change. Climate change is also already here. We can see this in many places in the world, one of the most prominent being in Indonesia. The island of Java is flooding regularly every year and with increasing intensity. And it floods because while the ocean levels are rising, they are rising extremely slowly, but the main cause being that the land mass of the island is actually sinking. Their seasons have also reversed. Their dry season and their wet seasons have flip-flop places, so when farmers go to plant their crop in the wet season, there's no rain, and when they go to harvest their crop in the dry season, all the rain comes pouring down. They end up with very poor crops. Many of them are fleeing to Saudi Arabia to work as construction workers. One of the farmers who was interviewed there for a German documentary was very pro-adapting. It's interesting to listen to him because he said that he was going to stay on the island as long as possible and he was going to wait for the weather. So if it was too dry to plant seeds, he would wait for the rain and then he would plant his seeds, as opposed to continuing on with the conventional calendar for planting. As our climate is adapting, it's also adopting. It's adopting our pollution. While polluting our earth is wrong, many creatures have begun to take refuge in the trash that we dump into the ecosystem. An example of this is the yellow goby. Scientists who go diving in the Lembeh Strait have concluded that much of the trash dumped into the water there is now a necessary part of the existing ecosystem. Several species have made homes out of the bottles and cans on the barren reef bed, yellow goby being one of them. These species don't exist in many other places on Earth, and their shelter options are also limited. So if we shouldn't be focused on cleaning out the oceans and stopping climate change, what should we do? The solution lies in the questions that we are asking our policymakers. We know that climate change is already here and that it's already affecting humanity. We also know that our ecosystem is adopting our pollution, and in some places overhauling and cleaning out that pollution could destroy the ecosystem a second time over. Furthermore, we understand that we must prepare for the projected effects of the ensuing climate change, which could wreck our economy as we know it. It's time to start asking these critical questions. How is our geological map going to change? Will we have the natural resources we need to maintain existence in the future? And if we don't have enough natural resources in the future, how are we going to reallocate our resources now to make sure that there is something for our future? Do we need to change the way that we trade with other countries in light of this environmental change? Do we need to change what we're producing and what we specialize in? Furthermore, if we end up with climate refugees, such as the ones that are migrating around Africa, how will we handle our shifting populations? Are we going to have to deal with massive political tensions that go along with the shifting population? These things we need to consider as we approach the impending changes that have been predicted. How is considering these points in our policy going to benefit us? Countries in Africa and Indonesia are currently struggling with many of these issues that come alongside with climate change. Their resources are poorly managed, and the people are suffering from uncertainty and high political tensions on a daily basis. By addressing the issues now, it does three things for us. First, it creates a smoother transition into the new climate. Secondly, it assures a better management of our natural resources both now and in our future. And finally, it prepares us to manage potential political tensions with a lot more grace than we otherwise would have. In conclusion, now that we've seen that our current discussions regarding climate change are essentially irrelevant, and that there are pressing questions that must be addressed and considered when creating modern policy, and that there will be a hugely positive impact on our future if we shift our conversation now rather than continuing to neglect these questions. Consider asking these questions to your friends and your family and bringing them up in your spheres of influence. For those of you who have influence within the policy-making community, take these questions there so that we can begin to prepare for how the environment change is going to affect us, rather than trying to change the environment and make it stay at a stagnant place where we feel comfortable. It's too late to stop the environment from changing. We can't control Mother Nature. But it's not too late to adapt and survive the change. Thank you.